Hello and welcome to Arctic Finland, where I have been wild camping on this frozen lake in my brand new Alpkit Kangri 2-person 4-season tent. I'm going to run you through the pros and cons of this tent with a slight focus on bike packing because that's what I do mostly. But before I run through all the pros and cons, let me get this tent off the ice so that I can actually put the pegs in without fear of falling in. When I say new tent, I've actually had this tent for over a year. I originally planned to take it to Iceland in winter, but if you've seen that film that I made, you'll know that pretty much everything went horribly wrong, so I never actually had a chance to use it. So instead, I decided to bring it here to Finland. And the reason I wanted to do that is, although I've used this several times back in the UK, I wanted to really test it and put it through its paces, and this is exactly the sort of place that it's designed for. Let's start with the basics. This is a 2-person 4-season tent, and it's the smallest and the cheapest 4-season tent that Alpkit do. And it ranges in price depending on what time of year you're looking. It can be anywhere from around £400 if you're lucky. You can get it a little bit cheaper at the moment. It's on sale about £360, I think. But anywhere from £360 to £420, depending on what time of year you look, is the price that you'll be looking to pay. And I think that's reasonably priced compared to the likes of a Hilleberg, for example, which is 2 to 3 times more expensive than that. It starts to look like it's good value. It has got some really good features, starting with its robustness. This is an absolutely bomb-proof tent. It's got absolutely loads of tie-down points, several guy line points around the side, and multiple points where you can peg it down from the fly sheet as well. The outer clips into the inner in multiple places as well, so you haven't got that fear of it flying off in some really harsh conditions. I really like how they've added loads of guy lines here. You probably don't need them, to be honest, but if it's incredibly stormy weather, you've got that added benefit of knowing that you can hunker down even more and the tent's not going to blow away. It's also really spacious. This is one of the only Alpkit tents that I've ever had that has really good headroom. It's got absolutely loads. Granted, I'm not sleeping on a mat right now, but I've got at least a foot and a half, so absolutely loads of room. There's equally loads of space if there's 2 of you, but if you're fortunate enough like me and you're going out by yourself, you can just spread out. You've got room for your kit. It's also got a pretty decent sized porch area as well, so you can get your kit out from the snow, from the rain, and keep it safe. And as you'd expect from a tent like this, you've got loads of internal pockets, lots of hanging spaces as well, multiple loops where you can put lights or hang your washing up or whatever you want to do. So there's absolutely loads of space in here, and it's very functional. And you can also see it's got 2 doors. You've got one at the other end as well as this one. This is a slightly larger side, but you've equally got that option of having a second entrance, which is ideal. Overall, I've been really impressed with this tent. I feel like it ticks a lot of boxes, and for most people, it's a really good buy, I would wager, especially if you're going to use it in conditions like this. It won't let you down. I do want to touch on a few cons though, especially revolving around bike packing, that I feel that are worth mentioning. And this tent weighs 3.5 kilos, and even compared to other 4-season winter-specific tents, that is quite a lot. And for bike packing purposes, you are really going to notice that. A really high-end 4-season tent might weigh half of that, and that is really going to add up when you're cycling in tough conditions like this. And it's reasonably bulky as well, so if you're taking a thick winter sleeping bag, like of course you will be in these sort of conditions, and then you add the tent into the mix, it's really going to be a challenge for you to fit that in most bike packing gear. On this trip, I've actually resorted to bringing a trailer so that I can carry everything that I possibly need and take no chances if things were to go wrong, for example. But when I went to Iceland, I actually used 2 large dry bags and lashed them together with bungee cords, which meant that the whole bike was a little bit unstable at the front. I'm sure you can find ways of making it work, but it's just worth bearing in mind that this plus a really thick winter sleeping bag is going to be very bulky and probably quite heavy. Another thing I need to point out is the pegs. These are the standard pegs that come with pretty much all Alpkit tents, and for most of the time they're okay, they do the job. But given that this is a 4-season winter tent, they really aren't up to the job in these sort of conditions. They bend really easily, they're super tough to get into hard, icy ground like I've got here. So even with a mallet, you'll probably struggle. And if you haven't got a mallet, you really aren't going to get anywhere. And finally, on to the biggest con. This tent is inner pitch first. I'm on the bandwagon that inner pitch first tents are actually great for most of the year. Pretty much all of my tents are inner pitch first, and I really like them. I've never had a problem with them, even in rainy conditions. By the time that I've set up the inner, because it takes hardly any time, I stick the outer on, and at worst, I've got a slightly damp inner that I can dab dry. That is it. However, I will change my opinion on this occasion. Given that this is a 4-season tent, the fact that it's inner pitch first isn't ideal. If you've got heavy snow or icy rain up in the Highlands of Scotland, you want to be able to set up your tent quickly. If you're a solo traveller using this tent, it does take a bit of faffing to get the inner set up properly because it's quite big compared to your smaller one-person tents. So you might find that it gets wet, which isn't going to be ideal in freezing conditions. I'll caveat that though by saying if you're riding as a pair and you're sharing a tent, you'll be able to set up the inner much quicker, so it might not be as much of a problem. So overall, should you buy this tent? I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit on the fence because there's a lot of things I do like about this, including the headroom, the robustness, and the price. I think it's reasonably priced for what you get. However, the things that are putting me off from recommending it to everybody are the fact that it's heavy, which isn't ideal for bikepacking, of course, and bulky, and it's inner pitch first. So if you're going somewhere where the weather is really treacherous, it's not going to be something that I would recommend you take, given that you could potentially put your life at risk. However, if you're the sort of person a bit like me who's probably only going to use this maybe once or twice a year if you're lucky, because let's be honest, it's much nicer going bikepacking when the weather's nice, then it might be worth getting this. The amount of money that you'd save on this versus a Hilleberg, for example, might make it worth your while. If you think you might only use it once or twice a year in fairly clear conditions, then you're probably going to get away with it just fine. And if you're going out bikepacking as a couple, the fact that you can set this up really quickly might negate some of the issue of the fact that this is inner pitch first. So that's it, that's the Alpkit Kangri 2-person 4-season tent. I have really enjoyed using it and I will continue to use it in future, but just be aware of those couple of cons going forward. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.